All right, it's 11:30. We're starting on time here. We're not like those losers downstairs. So we have Robert today, who's gonna you're gonna talk about migrating live apps to microservices, while they're in production, and nothing's gonna fail, and everything's gonna work
Everything
properly.
works perfect.
Okay, so this is awesome. I've seen this talk, and because this is a very famous talk, and it's phenomenal. You guys are going to learn a lot, so I'm really glad you came here. I'll leave the floor to Robert, and please give it up for him.
Thank you, good morning and everything. I'm Robert Raca. I work in Aduro Idea. Most of you know about that company. For you that don't know about Aduro Idea, we are a company that is working mostly for telecoms and other industries, but primarily for telecoms. So let's get started. So this story I will talk about is the true story that we went to past decade. So there is some things that I cannot say, so they are redacted, but I can say other things. So we started with requirement that we need to create application for one telecom that had some requirements that needed to be done. So we decided to build a web application for this purpose. And that was in early 2000s. And we started, as usual, in early 2000s with single web application that had some database, that had some backend workers, that did some backend jobs and things. And after some time, we realized that this way of coding where application was in PHP and it front end HTML and JavaScript was bundled in PHP code. So we realized that is not so good way. So second version was to decouple front end and back end. So we were happy about that, and we used brand new technology called Ajax in the time. And application started to grow and grow. We had more backend workers, more front-end things. So we created this thing that we call integration layer. So because this is still pretty early 2000s, we created integration layer in SOAP. You know what is SOAP? Yeah, great. Great technology from the 90s and loved in telecoms. So when we created integration layer, this is, let's say, some little mock-up of integration layer. This is written in Go. Everybody knows Go? Who needs a job? Okay, so this is mock-up of two little methods. One is customer status, one is customer valid request. It is just mock-up. So it takes incoming ID and sends it back to front end, says that status is okay, and its origin is integration layer. Other one is basically the same, but has property valid and says yes. To be a little bit different. So we can possibly run it. I gave the demo gods some Of course, it is not working. It is demo. And that's that. Not nice. So, demo is not working perfectly. Sorry? Ah, thank you. Au. Au. Oops. Let's try to fix this. I will just restart it for a second. Sorry, guys, but that's life. Oh, just a network problem as usual. So if you have any errors in your application, network is always the problem. So, okay, we have customer status method. This is some ID, status is okay, integration from origin is integration layer. Also, we have customer valid function. It is basically the same. It's just says that it is valid customer. So we created that integration layer because we realized that we are doubling the code because we had that, if you remember this part, we had these workers in the backend. And we had double code in workers and in web backend. So we created that integration layer so we could just have one code in one place. And as usual, everybody wanted to connect to us because we had that integration layer for basically whole telecom. So other vendors started to connect to us. And this is the reason why are we still on the SOAP. And we can't migrate to anything else. Is it so, Andrea? He's one of the vendors. And that's it, basically. We created that, and everybody lived happily ever after. And that's it. This is the end. Of course not. We are living in real world, not fairy tales. Everything grows in IT. So our application started to grow even more. We had problems with large monolith of integration layer. Because it is pretty big code base. So if anybody wanted to change something, he needed to watch to not fuck up something else. And then we decided that we need to change some things. We started to try other technologies to help ourselves. We had some Gearman workers, Beanstalk workers. We started to create some services in ZeroMQ. We used Memcached for the services, Redis, and everything. And we created something like some basic microservices. Basically, those were services that did some special task for integration layer, and there was no automatic deployment or service discovery or anything. So we just put them on the servers, and in 6 months, maybe a year, we used all the good ports. You know the good ports, 8080, 80,000, 433, and those things, and we had problems, no ports. So then we decided that we need to change something, because everything is growing. It is not so reliable as it should be, and we set the goals for ourselves that we need to accomplish. So we couldn't change SOAP. It is still here. But we could create some sort of service discovery, some kind of flexible infrastructure, so you do not think about ports or things like that, and to be fault tolerant. And we used gRPC and etcd for those purposes. And we created something like this. So this is all the integration layer, and we created Proxy, which forwards requests to the microservices or to the integration layer, depending if somebody calls some method on Proxy, and that method is created on microservice cluster, it will forward call to the microservices. If that method doesn't exist on microservices, it will forward it to the integration layer. So that all the monolith stuff that we have. And this is basically what we're trying to accomplish. This is final design. We are still having some services that are still on old integration layer, but this design should be in, I don't know, sometime accomplished. So Proxy is pretty much simple thing. You can create some service and define. Sorry, sore throat. And you can define where that service is located. So you remember that I started some integration layer a few slides ago. So he is on NT90 port locally on my computer, and we will create proxy service on 8070, and it is on path IVS, Aduro IDEA Web Services. So if I run this proxy, and if it starts, and it started, thanks, demo gods. And if I call service, you will see that call is made to integration layer. If I use the second service, it will also go to integration layer, and everything works fine as it was before. So no changes to the environment was made, basically. Yeah, and we decided to use gRPC for the microservices. And gRPC uses protobuffer definitions. Everybody knows for protobufers. Yeah. Who needs a job? So this is definition of customer service, customer status service. It sends ID as a string. It gets back ID, status, and origin. It is the same as old monolith service and should work, probably. And this is whole code of microservice. There is some magic in background, but basically this is all code, full code of creating one microservice in our environment. So you need to create proto-buffer definition, create a service, and register it to Aduro IDEA web service something. And basically it looks the same as that monolith thing. It gets incoming ID, change status to OK, but origin is microservice. And if I start it, and if demo gods still love me, so this is the same call that was made before, but origin was integration layer. Now it is microservice layer. And if I change to customer valid function, which is still on integration layer, and I call it, it will say that it is on the integration layer. So Proxy is switching traffic between integration layer and microservice cluster. So if there is a service in microservices, it will call microservices automatically. Nobody claps, nothing. And there is also some benefits for the whole cluster thing. If you notice, this is some sort of big ID that is generated. And if I check the call, it will show me full trace of the call from all the services that went to it. So you can inspect request response and see everything that is called. And that is that magic part that is that you get on top of everything. So that is basically it. Do you have any questions or something? Is there some questions or? Yeah.
So as I understand it, if we add the validate method right now to the microservice, it would go to the validate method even though it still exists on the integration.
No. Validate method goes to the integration layer because it not exists on microservice.
If we added it to the microservices, would it go to the microservice?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. By default? No.
By default, no configuration, no anything.
Yeah.
So if you remember when I started everything, I called customer status service, and it went to the integration layer part.
And then you added the microservice.
I just started the microservice, nothing was done extra. There is no configuration, no nothing. All the code that you see here, this is the microservice. That's full code. There is few packages, but there is no configuration or anything. So it is fully dynamic. Some more questions, or we are going home? Okay, guys, so that's it.